Yo, it is the Human with the Philosopher Dunamis on this week's episode number 39. Fight for your story. Please be sure to hit that like button on your way in. And if you like us, consider subscribing to keep up with our episodes on YouTube and give us a follow on X.
And Fightcast is here to empower individuals to live healthier, master finances, pursue dreams, and inspire others through self awareness and global impact. This is for entertainment and educational purposes only and not financial advice.
Dunamis, what it look like?
This is uh this is a really cool episode, man. It's been a great week, I think, although things have been really crazy, and as always, it sort of fits in with what we're talking about this week. I don't know how that always works out that way, but yeah, there's been some moves that I'm trying to make, and in the short term, it's causing a little stress, but it's exciting in the long term. And I will say, my fiance and myself are really planning on founding a homestead and working on all of the stuff that kind of goes into that. And so it's all exciting and scary at the same time. But things are going great, man. And how's your week been?
Man, I wish I could give you some emojis right now and give you the 100 in the fires and all of that, dude. That's incredible. And definitely think that we need to throw a few more roses at that and say congratulations to you, buddy. But dude, I'm feeling pretty good. It's been a good week. It's been productive. I've been working on some new material, and I've also been going back to the project and just finalizing some things. I've been finalizing some things for quite some time now, but just want to make sure everything is in good order and visuals are all, clean and clear. And yeah, it's been a lot of that. It's been a lot of the back end stuff and just making sure everything's been submitted properly. So it's been good, man. It's been good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. There's some significant things going on, and I don't follow enough to know the astrology of all the stuff and what's going on in the heavens at this time. But there's there's some significant, endings and beginnings, I think, that are happening right now. And so it's sort of a time of opportunity, I think, is kind of what it feels like to me. And I'm trying to jump and grab the bull by the horns. I know you are too, Izzy. So it's very
Yeah,
cool.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. I agree with you, and I don't remember exactly what was in what, or what moon was in what, but you're not wrong. It's definitely been some alignments up in the air, right? And it's been one of those times, those periods where it's definitely been just grabbing the bull by the horns and getting where you need to get, and it's been not only like the thought of just grabbing the bull by the horns, but just grabbing the bull by the horns, knowing that you already have a plan in place. So that's where it feels a lot more structure and a little less chaotic.
I mean, sometimes you just
Yeah.
got to jump, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's where you're walking by faith and not by sight. That's where that whole, I feel like that's where that whole excerpt comes in because you have and there was something I posted not too long ago that said, God doesn't, um, like he doesn't call on the qualified. He qualifies, the people that are ready. Like so something along those lines. I wish I could remember like verbatim what it was, but just along the lines of, you may seem or feel qualified, but God is the one who actually qualifies you for those opportunities. And I think that's perfect that you said that too, just because I feel like that leads us into our topic of the story, and just knowing that, like, through the episodes that we've talked about, man, like community and manifestation and just a lot of those self-actualization episodes. This is a big one, man, because you're continuing to walk what we've been talking. And, that goes along with just our overall narrative of what fight means.
Yeah, the individual, the idea of the individual, the idea of liberty, that's always been very strong in a lot of the stuff that we've done. And but at the same time, like you're saying, it's the this esoteric idea of manifestation, of the idea that I was talking to my kids here recently as we were taking a walk, and I keep coming back to this idea of imagination. You know how powerful human imagination is, and we've called it different things. I would say that God drops inspiration down into our soul, and you get this inspiration to do something. We've used the term the muse in
Mm.
the episode with RC and everything as well. No matter how you look at it, there's you know there's opportunities out there to listen and let and be inspired, but understanding that your story is always going to be a little bit different than someone else's story. There's something that makes you unique and special above and beyond anyone else in the universe. And so the other thing I think that we want to talk about tonight is how your unique imagination and ideas, they you get the inspiration, but then you take action, and imperfect action's fine. You step out before you really understand and know what you're doing. And that's kind of what I'm going to try and do. and and I want to ask you, how does that look in your music career? You've been writing your story here and working on that. How does this week's episode, what do you think about it? And how have you manifested your story here and continue to, because we're still just getting started.
Appreciate the question. And it stems now more than anything of just me as an individual person, and stems deep within the roots of my DNA. And really knowing who I am as an individual comes a lot from that. And going back to what you mentioned here about manifestations and how your imagination, differentiates from others. Imagination is imagination, right? Just in the word itself. But what we think about and how we interpret these things in a creative sense, just have some tweaks to it. And for me, the just really knowing who I am and knowing what I represent, um it's been a journey, that's for sure. And I would like to think, or at least like to say, that even in my 20s, when I was talking about some other things, that even during those times were maybe a little cringe, but it was still very true to who I was. And then as I've gotten older, I've obviously experienced a lot more, and I've just been able to simplify my lyrics a lot more. I feel like I still have some complex storytelling moments, but I find that a lot of my more impactful songs come from simplification. I feel that when the words are simplified and they're true, they're more impactful. I feel them a lot more, and I feel like the audience feels it a lot more too. And as a music artist, and as a fan of music, I know I can definitely feel, when Prince is telling me a story, when Michael Jackson's telling me a story, when Wale or Hove or Ye, or the list can continue and go on. But I just believe them. I believe them, and I feel it a lot more. So that in itself, and is just, it's I think it's a big thing as far as like longevity goes with music. But yeah, getting at least minimizing the imposter syndrome. I don't think the imposter syndrome ever really goes away, because I think as artists we're always a little surprised when things connect. It's and it's rewarding, right? And we accept it with humility. Um, but I think even in that instance too, you've got to remember this is what you've worked for. This is the effort that you put in for it. So
Hmm.
you just have to, know how to respond to what the universe brings you, right? It's like, oh, I'm so surprised. I didn't think this would happen. And then the universe kind of, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I, I I don't know if it helps to go here with this right now, but I will maybe say some things. I don't know if these are things that you would say, but I I would say that it's looking at the music industry and seeing how the music industry has selected the winners and losers. It's kind of amazing to me, and I look at you've been doing this for a while, and I've looked at some of your songs that were from years ago, and they're amazing. I mean,
Thanks,
the
dude.
the talent that you've had and carried over a good amount of time is it's I think the imposter syndrome also can come in because you might look and see, and you know that you're good at what you do, and if you don't see the success that comes from it, it understanding that it's not because of you, it's more because of the selection process and how that game is rigged. And again, like I said, I don't know if these are words that you would say, but I think that you've gotten a raw end of the deal in that sense, man, because I think that you have the talent to have a six-figure income. You know that all should be a part of it. And when I don't mean to take this over and be and talk about what I think, in regards to the music industry and stuff, but I just I think that hanging in there is sort of something that is important, and you've put in the consistency, and you have the longevity and the experience. I feel like the breakthrough is something that is like right around the corner, and that's something that in a big way. And I believe that, and I have to believe it. I believe that for myself too, in the sense of what I want to get ready to start working on. Um, and you and I work in different, we do different things, but we also do some of the same things. And I just I'm believing for your success, man. You've got all the talent in the world, and you're a good person. So you know, I know it's happening.
Well, thank you, man. I really appreciate those words, and to tail with what you were saying about the industry, and we can, I can stamp it from there. The industry has changed a lot of things, especially in this day and age of technology, with algorithm, and what may be popular yesterday or what may be popular now may not be popular the next day, and that's just with the click of a button. I think that if I had the equipment that I have now in those times where SoundCloud was alive and well, and there was just YouTube was breaking through, right? Like Soldier Boy eras and things like eras, not errors. um I think it would have been a little different, but you know I think now is also a good time too, because you're able to you're able to not necessarily see the trends, but just see what gratification looks like, right? And not that that necessarily changes what you do creatively, but just how how you articulate on the certain platforms. The song itself doesn't change, but the presentation of the song. I'm not always going to post a full song on certain platforms. I will give the 30-second clip and provide a good visual, something that's going to be catchy, something that's going to get your eye, and looking at the right hashtags. There is some science that goes into this, right? But
Hmm.
ultimately, the consistency that the other end of that you spoke of is once you find what your core, what your core values are, that ultimately defines, what your hashtags are too. I'm a rapper, I'm a hip hop artist. There's no shame in that at all. My core is rap, hip hop, and those are some of the hashtags that I use. Esoteric is another one that I use.
Hmm.
There's ways to go about doing that. And another thing that I will say to any artist out there listening to this is, when you're looking at hashtags, and this is a bit of a rabbit hole, don't always look at the hashtag that has the most views on it. Hip hop has about 1 million to 1 billion people, but it's the hashtags that have the least followers on there are the ones that you're going to gain the most exposure from, because again, if you've only got one with 12,000, your probability of somebody looking and finding your stuff is going to be a lot higher than being in a pool of 1 million people. So that's another end of it that you got to factor into the play. And that's also a bit of a cheat code, I think, on how you really get to the or how you beat the algorithm. So yeah, just throw some gems out. I think that should have been on a Patreon.
Yeah, I agree, and there's there's parallels to that idea of that exclusivity. Um, the In homesteading, one of the things that I'm looking at is potentially starting out with chickens, but eventually adding, I believe they call it the Pharaoh quail.
Mm,
And the idea is exactly that, having more of a niche. So it's not just, that not that hip hop tag where everybody's about, everybody's going to have the brown eggs, the Rhode Island red chickens are probably what we're going to start out with. But if you have quail eggs, what I'm saying, there's not a lot of people selling quail eggs, and so that's going to fetch a premium that you're not going to get from regular chicken eggs.
right. Man, that's so incredible that it just, oh my gosh, man. I can't tell you how excited I am for you and your fiance to get this going. Um and folks, I really hope that you're like really tuning in, because I think that the difference between somebody homesteading and the difference between somebody homesteading is just in even how you're breaking the type of chicken, man. Like a fight for food, y'all. Just,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that you could probably give us the benefit of those types of chickens. Like, what are some of the health benefits of those types of chickens in comparison to others?
Well, the really the breed of the chicken is going to tell you what the chicken is good at. So there's nowadays chickens that are really good at laying eggs and chickens that are really good, they're raised for meat. The Rhode Island Red in particular is a heritage chicken, which basically means that it breeds true. So if you have a rooster that's a Rhode Island Red and a Rhode Island Red hen, then you're going to get chicks that are Rhode Island Red, which is good. And it's a good hybrid chicken, so it lays a lot of eggs, but could also be used for meat if needed. We're mostly interested in eggs, and in particular, where you mentioned, or the question that you asked was nutrition, and really the nutrition benefits come from what the chicken eats. So we're going to be pasture raising our chickens, probably having them follow on a pasture rotationally behind some sheep. We're actually talking about raising sheep as well, and
Mm,
so the benefits there is that the chickens are not going to need. We're probably not going to need to vaccinate the chickens. We're not going to need to pump them full of a bunch of chemicals. They're going to be out on grass, eating bugs and moving around a lot so that they don't catch any diseases. And this is again how it all works in theory. This is how the organic farmers do it, and from what we've seen on YouTube, they have a lot of success. My mom has raised chickens, and my sister's raised chickens, and so there's a little bit of experience in the family, but I've never done it before. So yeah, it's a part of not being afraid to take on new things is a big part of writing your story. At some point in time, you had to start rapping, and it's a little scary when you're taking on something new. And I think a big part of success when I've taken on new things in the past is just accepting up front that I'm not going to be great at it to start, but that if I stick with it and keep learning, that I will eventually get good at it.
Right. And the not being afraid to reinvent the wheel. And you said it perfect, man. Being in this industry and just even being in this life, you have to be comfortable with not being like the other person. I'm 110% okay with not being Jay-Z and Kanye and Kendrick Lamar and Wale, because they are who they are, just like I am who I am. And I may be inspired and motivated to want to make music because of these guys, but I'm not also making music to sound like these guys. They already have a sound, just like, I would like to comfortably say that I have a sound. I know who Izzy Human is, and I know, who he is on the microphone and how he speaks and how he performs. And, I like to also think that I have, an individualness to me that can't be emulated. It can, surely be studied, but to be copied and to be perfected, that shouldn't be any other artist's aim to want to be like somebody else. And I had a reference in a song that said, not even, AI couldn't even talk how I talk, and in exception the Def Lord. Shout out to DJ Def Lord, our AI producer. He knows me really, really well. But besides all of that, being able to reinvent the wheel, I mean, let's just be real. Everything in this life is, I would say, about 95% recycled. Even when you look at technology, because something has been studied from another thing that, has now evolved into something else. And much respects to, Grandmaster Flash and the guys that were breakboxing on the, beatboxing and breakdancing on cardboard, and the big beatboxes and all of that. That's not what hip hop, not what, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that's not what hip hop is now, but hip hop has evolved from that. And
Hmm.
it's turned into, more digital, which is a good thing, because you got to be able to evolve with the times. And having access again to all of this technology now, where artists are able to be more independent and less relying on the industry, has made it, well, one, it's definitely made the industry a lot more saturated, for sure, but it's also giving creatives an opportunity to do things, with the same tools, as the industry. I would say the kickback, to the being the independent is you don't have that funding, or that
Hmm.
necessarily that capital, the millions of dollars to push for, the radio streams and promotions and whatnot. And we might have to save that for another episode on, just how that stuff works, man. Because I've had plenty of debates with people about, if you're good, then your music will get played on the radio, which in some cases is like, okay, but it's almost like you got to not only have a good song, but you got to have the backing of people liking your song to be like, hey, we want to put $1 million behind this. You know what I mean? Because they know that they're going to get their return on the investment as well.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense in terms of the record industry. Yeah, for sure. with with what you were talking about, copying in terms of music and ideas and artists, I actually think the same thing applies in entrepreneurship. So if you're trying to figure out what to do with your life, or the same thing applies if you're a trader. Let's say you trade meme coins or you trade, crypto. You can't copy exactly what everybody else is doing. It just doesn't work that way. You're not going to be
Right.
successful trying to copy someone else at anything. But the while that is true, you can't just copy somebody and achieve the same success. One of the one of the quotes, I don't remember where I heard it from, but the idea was that if you copy from one person, copying from one person is plagiarism, and copying from many sources is research. And the idea there being, and I think about this in software development, is that they have these things called design patterns, and it's just like in music, you have chord progressions and you have certain styles and beats and things like that. So you learn the patterns and you use the patterns as almost like Lego pieces, and you put your own unique part into it. But that's what we're talking about, the how everything has been done, right? Like everybody is playing something that's been done in the past, but you do it differently, and you take these patterns and these in software development it's design patterns, but you
Hmm.
take these solutions and you kind of put them together in a unique way that's inspired, and that's what makes it unique and special to you. But absolutely, we're standing on the shoulders of giants is really the term. We're there's people that came before us and they laid the groundwork, and there's no way we would be able to do what we're doing if it weren't for that groundwork.
Yeah, most definitely. Paying homage to, all of the innovators out there, man. I gotta give a lot of credit to the person who came up with electricity. Big shout out to you. Shout out to these outlets and all that good stuff. Um, but that's really cool, man. As far as the development portion of it, and there's so much that goes into that. And I know that we've talked about, doing some crash courses to get acclimated with that, man. But I feel like that too, dude, because coding and developing is just a whole other beast, man. And I'm sure that you have met a colorful dynamic of people. And I'm sure a lot of people have very interesting stories in that space. Um, Talk about that a little bit to the audience, and just when you started this whole realm, and just some of the people that you've experienced and the things that you've learned and how that shaped you as a developer, and what you do now that kind of stamps your kind of like dunamis dev thread.
The software development portion of my life has been, it's been a big part of really a decade and a half of stuff. But it's interesting because before then I did all kinds of different things, from pest control to working graveyard shifts at gas stations to being a courier to whatever it took. I was a telemarketer, you know, um, had all sorts of different jobs. But in software development, I learned a lot. And when I was doing it professionally full time, which I'm not right now, but when that was going on, that it really was the central part of my story, and I think here now, even in the last few years, my story has changed to where I'm now going to be an entrepreneur ultimately, and I'll probably end up with several different businesses, as well as we're going to document a lot of what we're doing on YouTube, whether it's also on the Liberty Project channel. We might just do that, or whether we have a separate YouTube channel as well. I'm not quite sure yet, but the way that all of that has shifted and evolved, and you're like you said, I've met a lot of really great, amazing people in the time that I've been developing software. A couple of them in particular that I still am in very close contact with. But and being a software engineer, I think, has also taught me a lot about handling conflict, about resolving conflicts on teams, and also how to how to not just tolerate people that I disagree with, but how to love people that I disagree with, how to get along with and actually enjoy people that I have different opinions, on things with. And it's so overall, I think it's made me a happier, better person. But now I'm getting into this time in my life where I'm probably going to be handling animals, producing food, doing different things, and then the software development now shifts more into working on website stuff for our crypto projects, as well as for for the homestead. I'll probably just be using that skill in other endeavors. So it's interesting because it's still, time management's a difficult thing for me, and we're still going to be bootstrapping and getting on our feet. But this whole podcast has been our audience listening to us kind of flounder and figure out how to, or at least me. I mean, you actually, I feel like, Izzy, you've got your stuff a little bit more together than I do in some cases. So um
And I would say that with what you've got going on is huge, and it's and there's you don't compare apples to oranges, but you inspire me, man. You inspire me, and it's dope that we inspire each other. But I think that the big piece of the puzzle that's missing for me is that land, man. And I'm surrounded by it for sure. And there's some there, but like my own land, you know what I mean? And that's awesome. That's awesome. And I hope that it inspires our audience as much as it inspires me, man. And you said something while you were speaking about even when you may not necessarily agree with somebody. And, I wanted to touch on that and just how that can also shape your story as well, and handling conflicts and resolutions. And I think that out of everything that you can grow from, growing from patience is like the biggest one. It's a huge gem, dude. Just being able to breathe in those situations where you want to be so adamant about proving a point versus really just hearing what somebody else is telling you, even if you don't agree with them at a 97% rate. There's still a lesson to be learned from that, even if the lesson is just that you're really not going to talk to that person. And I feel like even that translates into the music too, being able to just know that there are just some things that you don't need to talk about, and there's more strength in not talking about those things than there is to just get your rocks off in that space, or there's a way to articulate that emotion versus being impulsive, as you will, man. And this story, man, it goes in so many ways. It does. But what I really want to circle around to is just knowing that this story is your own, and just maybe getting a little esoteric, and just knowing that not only is this story your own, but knowing that you have everything that you need to tell your story. And the only thing that you need is just life.
mhm.
Life in itself. And as long as you're privileged to have life, and have air, and you being able to breathe, like, you are the architect of your design. Well, God, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's to piggyback on that thought is also what helps you to find that story and your purpose should sort of fall in line with what your talents are. These are all touching on, different subjects that we've talked about in the past, but the reason why you have pursued rapping is because you're a good MC. That's something that comes naturally for you. It wouldn't make sense for you to you're also athletic, but it wouldn't make sense for you to I don't know, have tried to become a painter like Michelangelo or something like that, if that's not something that you're naturally talented in.
Right.
And sometimes people, I think they stick in situations where they're working really hard, they're trying really hard, and I've been reminded again recently to try to now the homesteading thing, that's going to be there's going to be a lot of new there. There's going to be a lot of stuff to learn, but there's also a lot of passion for me in that space, and I also feel like I'm going to be getting involved in music again in some form or fashion. It might be in a church, but they're things that I wouldn't say come easy, but come easier for me than a lot of stuff. So, I think a part of your story should be finding those things that sort of come naturally, that come easy, and then work on them so that they're even easier, right?
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't have been a veterinarian. I did think about being one when I was a kid,
Hmm.
but I'm really glad that I was pushed toward the pen for sure. I love animals, but I also love other people that are professionals at taking care of animals.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's like with veterinarians, it's basically like becoming a doctor. I think it's the same. There's a lot of the same overlap of what you have to learn. So it's very involved. Sheep, I think, is an interesting one because I actually, a lot of American farmers now are buying these meat sheep that are specifically raised for meat, but don't have a lot of wool. And I want to raise I think they're called merinos, and they're prized for having some of the finest wool. And I think that would be really exciting. And my fiance actually crochets, and so there might be opportunity there for us to make some sweaters, blankets, and with 100% merino wool. So I think
Yeah.
that'd be kind of cool.
Oh yeah, man. That kind of goes into the lane of Kanye West and just him even like the type of cotton that he wanted for his shirts. Like I feel like it's definitely along those lines.
Hmm.
I feel like as your friend, I feel like I feel the benefits of this.
Oh yeah, heck yeah, man. We're um we're gonna have to start with having you visit, and it's
Yeah.
gonna take a while for me to clear some land, but yeah, man, it's gonna be fun. I think we're gonna have to document it all. We're definitely gonna be talking about it on this podcast every step of the way. But I'm even looking into, there's machinery that I can rent for, let's say, 140-ish dollars a day,
Hmm.
and then they can go in and take these cedar trees out really quick. And from what I understand, in one day they might be able to clear 3 to 5 acres. And so
Wow.
that would be really cool. But at the same time, I'm thinking, that would require an operator as well. But
True.
on the other hand, I can also just buy a chainsaw and a wood chipper and go out there one tree at a time and put in the sweat equity. you know. Um, so we'll just have to see. I definitely want to work smarter and not harder, but it's you have to balance spending money with what you can do yourself, right?
Yeah. Rick Ross has, I think it was Holyfield's property, the Promised Land out in Atlanta. And I was just watching a video of a gentleman. His name is the Lawn Dude. That's his name on YouTube. But Rick Ross flew him out there to do his yard. And when Rick Ross started this, that's the thing was Holyfield would pay $1 million a year just in lawn service. And Rick Ross said, "I'm not doing that." So he bought his John Deere and his chainsaw. He did his own yard, brought the lawn dude out, and the lawn dude was given the breakdown of just what he had to do, and just talked about the things that Rick Ross did, and just the fact that you can do those things by yourself and cut down $1 million expense. And granted, it may not be a million, not $1 million, on your side of it per se, but just it could be 100, thousands, and maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars that you're saving just by doing things on your own. And I think that too, it's not always it evolves, right? Again, that word evolve. Like you go from you doing the yard work and you cutting the trees to now you've accumulated, you saved, and now you can the next plot is now you hire this person to do this while you're working on this portion of it. So now you've got two things that are getting done in their entirety, and it builds from there. And it sounds like that's the strategy that you've already put in your mind anyway. So yeah, again, the biggest part was getting the land, which you have acquired, and now all of our episodes go into what you do next.
Well, definitely talk about it and cover sort of the strategies and stuff. But the for whoever's listening, their story is going to be something different than mine and different than yours. But
Yeah,
what's really cool is it could have some aspects of both. It has to be your own. You have to take the ideas and like the stuff that we're saying that doesn't apply to you or doesn't make sense, just throw it out. It doesn't apply. But
right.
the stuff that does, incorporate it and make it your own, and then now you're not copying someone else. Now it's your story, right?
Right. Right. And don't be afraid to start with a blank canvas and just if words resonate and they stick here and there, let that just be the canvas itself. Let other people's achievements and the things that you like about other people just be your blank canvas too. Don't take their blueprint as the full on guide per se, of other than just them doing something that they love to do. And I feel like that is another key point to paint out is just seeing other people be successful and not wanting their success, because wanting somebody else's success is you telling the universe you want their problems too. Just and that's the other side of it. If you're a light worker, you also have to be a shadow worker as well. So a lot of these celebrities and famous people that we see have been through some really rough points in their lives to be where they're at right now.
Mhm.
And don't discredit your struggles and your progress and think that now you're belittling your own problems, like somebody else went through bigger problems to get the bigger reward. Again, God qualifies you. Okay, the qualified. It's not about the who you think is qualified. God qualifies you for these positions. So as long as you stay true to your course and what God has planned for you, then you'll see the reward. And I think, and again, I think I've said this in few of our other episodes. There's more power, and I think that there's more reward by just being quiet sometimes, man. And there's just more of a reward of just realizing that none of this stuff, none of these material things matter. And I think if I can put that in anybody's book, or at least put some words of wisdom in a book, it's just realizing that none of this stuff really matters at the end, and just not to take life as serious as people want you to take it, because the joke is we live and we die. um,
Yeah.
so just the things that we harp on and the statuses that we die for, just to have a status of death. Sorry guys, morbid. But just again, when you're looking at all of this, and just when you're ever in that boat of comparison to somebody else and their success, like my gosh, bro, you know how many 30 something year olds I see, that are hip hop artists that are like making millions and millions of dollars, and I look at myself and I'm like, dude, I am 34 years old, and I'm not making millions of dollars right now. But am I also living my dream though? Yeah. And a lot of those artists will talk about that too in the interview. If you are able to find a way to do what you love and not have to do something else, or find something and do something that also complements what you're doing, you've already won. that man, that changed my whole
100%.
mindset. Changed my whole mindset.
Definitely. That's, a big part of why I want to do this homestead because it's on the one hand, I keep hearing about all these small farms that fail, but then on the other hand, for me, this is not going to be a business to either fail or succeed. This is my life, so it's I have to survive, and so I if nothing else, I think I'm going to be coming at it with I can't fail attitude. There is no plan B.
Right.
But that's what fight is all about. So, you know,
No, you won't fail. No, you won't fail. You've hit a milestone right now with what the universe has wanted you to do. And now, as long as you just continue to listen to that faint voice that's been guiding you this entire time, you're prepared and you're protected. It's another one of those things like, walking by faith and not by sight, man. We just have to sometimes we just have to keep jumping. God may want us to jump 1,000 times, and we're like, man, we just jump. Well, I need
yeah,
you to jump again. All right, that's fine. Don't ask questions, just do it. Because each time you've jumped, you've made it out to the other side. So there is a confidence that comes with that, and just knowing that when God does tell us to jump, we've been fine every time. May not have been the most comfortable, but growth isn't supposed to be comfortable, and growth will never be comfortable. There is no successful CEO out there that just sits and I feel like is complacent. And like, take Apple for example. Apple, and not to get too far into politics, but Apple has definitely transitioned a lot to they've transitioned back into the United States and have put I think it's either what 60 million or 60 billion dollars into the United States. They've poured it into there, and I'm really excited just to see what becomes of that. But just seeing how Apple started out to, they were international, right? They had all of their manufacturing stores, overseas, and how they've evolved with our economy and are meeting I guess, the demand. Some people may not agree, but how they're meeting, demands and how they're even evolving over time. What that says about the price of the iPhone, who's to say? But just seeing what's happening in our world and seeing the transitions that companies are doing to see that we're in a better place financially, hopefully.
the one thing that I would want to say this week too is to be patient with it because I'm just now getting to a point when you talk about me having acquired it, we haven't quite closed yet, but when we do close, that's still going to just be the the entry point. That's like a starting point.
Hmm.
It's not the end of anything really. It's just a beginning. But at the same
Right.
time, like God's been giving me information about this for the last 5 years. So I mean, I've already been waiting 5 years to get to this starting point, and so I say that just to say that it takes time. And I'm also starting this, past I'm in my mid 40s, you know, and it's not too late at that point. It's not too late at any point to start to do what God's asking you to do. And in my case, it's a bit extreme and it's taking a lot of faith and risk, but I'm I'm confident that if he asked me to do it, that it's he's going to help me complete it. So it's going to be fun, definitely for us to talk about it and to continue to follow your career and what I'm doing with that, and then also it's going to be cool to get together and do some stuff down here in Texas too. I think.
Yeah, I agree, man. I'm really, really excited, and to about you acquiring the land. Yeah, it's only just begun, and when God gives me, the energy and the drive to go ahead and say, hey, here's the next idea for the next album, EP, and you go through that process, you start to record, and you go through that, and you have that moment, and then when you're done, you're satisfied with that project. Of course, all things, few things varying, but then after that, it's not done. It's not done. It's on to the next one. It's on to the next single. It's on to the next visual. It's all of it is branching off of each other. I'm really excited for Cozy Chronicles Part 2 to come out, but I'm most excited about Hippie Prom, and I'm even more excited about Cult Volume 2, and I'm excited about the collaborations and everything that's going to come with that, because the story's not done. The story will always continue. Well, not always, but the story should hopefully continue, even when you're not around. I just want these words and our actions to, you know, be a starter guide for somebody to, go about their hero's journey.
That's legacy. What you're talking about is really, it's there's gonna be things that people say about us after we're gone, and for some people it's not good. For some people, there's people say bad things about some people after they're gone.
Hulk Hogan.
Well, and that's unfortunate. I think that Hulk Hogan was a good guy,
Yeah, I thought so
and
too.
it's there's everyone has faults. There's going to be people that have bad things to say about me after I'm gone, I'm sure. But at the same time, like,
49ers fan.
yeah, you know, but the music though, like the music that you're creating is going to leave a stamp on time. And for me, what I'm trying to do now is set something up for my boys, for my
Yeah.
kids to have healthy food, and assurance about where their food comes from, where their water comes from, and a lot of those things just became very important for me. And a lot of your story is, I think, important for you to ask yourself what is important, what is it that you want, and what's worth fighting for.
Right. Real, man. Real. And I've learned over the course of 34 years that, I know it sounds a little crazy to say, but I feel like everything is worth fighting for to some degree. Because I mean, everything in this life is, it does affect you in some way, but again, controlling the things that you can't accept, and accepting the things that you can, or changing the things you can't accept and accepting the things that you can't change, like all of that. And then this life is just really a big balance beam, and we're all just a bunch of gymnasts at the end of the day, and God is just testing our flexibility. So the more you do yoga and the more that you meditate, the better off you are,
Yeah.
so to
I
speak.
I haven't really ever done yoga, but for me it was going out and taking walks, because I hadn't been out connected with nature at all. And yeah, having a little bit of that alone time. We talked about it in the solitude episode, but that's really, really important and key. Our mental health is, you mentioned shadow work, and it's unpleasant sometimes to have to go and get in touch with your feelings, and all that kind of stuff. But it's in doing those things, and that's the kind of stuff that you do when you're by yourself. That's how we grow. That's how we learn. That's how, uh, when we were talking earlier, a saying popped into my head, and that was, that the beginning of wisdom is understanding that you're the asshole. And
Yeah.
it's something that I had to realize about myself. And when I realized that I was the asshole, I was able to start changing. You know, you can't change until you recognize that there's a problem. And all of this is not to say this is not to be a big therapy session, but to say that your story depends on you being able to decide what it is you actually want, and move in the direction, make goals, take action. But so many people don't even recognize that it's an option. They just feel like, okay, these are the cards I've been dealt, and this is what I have to do. But life is about recognizing that there are no rules, that that the thought that you have to do anything is just an illusion. And you know, if you have a dream, if there's something that you want to do, if God has called you to do something, you have to attack it, sometimes ferociously and without fear. And yeah, we might fail, but you know, that's just that's the risk.
Hmm. It is, man. That's just the risk. Risk and reward, y'all. Risk and reward. And Dunamis, man, this has been great. I feel like when we do these things, I feel like I forget that man, it's been an hour. Shoot.
Yeah, I know. And on that note, you know, if you made it to the end, I would say this time let's drop a book emoji down in the comments, and because this is your story.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
I love it, man. And let's do something again next week. I don't know what, but let's talk again.
We'll figure it out. We always do. Yes,
Awesome,
sir.
brother. Well, until next time, never give up the fight.
Never give up the fight, y'all.
You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. Looking for change, looking for pain. Pulling a mob, pushing a train. I'll never stop, stick to a lane. Pick up the pieces and go rearrange. I'll be the best above all the rest, put me to the test and expect nothing less, your check is I'm chess, what's happening next, yeah. He got the venom, a tangible weapon, no coming in second. This life is a lesson, he got a new engine from pain, it's a blessing. New focus, no guessing, just bold and obsession. All in his possession, you got their attention. I'll leave an impression and take a redemption. Just kill, no discretion, your mind is a weapon. 11-11, it's time for progression, You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. People like sheep move feet, hurt it easy. You don't wanna be fast asleep when they scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me. When they try the chains, you can say no, free me. So he's been looking for somebody who could save him, instead of searching inside for what they gave him. A strong will, strong mind causes mayhem. We could change the world, change times, rearrange them. Staying on pace, running the race. Life is a chase, I don't want a place. I wanna be first, work till it hurts. Dehydrated thirst till I'm in a hearse. High ambitions and the right mind can take you so far. It's like you lived a few lifetimes. Take off from a break off from the weak minds. They can stay soft, you can change lives, you create thoughts. Never waste time, you got one shot, you got one life. Better pop off, what do you like? Make a dream job, no 9-5, no mean boss. Just my life and free thoughts. You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. People like sheep move feet, hurt it easy. You don't wanna be fast asleep when they scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me. When they try the chains, you can say no, free me.